All right, we back. Made some changes. Sure. Is the NBA coming on? Hmm, 1:30. Heat Celtics. Tomorrow 1:30. All right, let's do this.
Two Batman, two Barry Allens, and one multiverse in total disarray.
Now arriving at Lijiang Tower. Prepare for battle. Select your hero.
What y'all trying to do?
I'm here to be heard. Oh, I would much rather tour the galaxy than deal with the sound crystal trade routes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Round 1. Capture the objective.
Attack the objective. Ready.
Ha. I feel this in my bones.
The objective is now.
I hope this doesn't mess with your stream schedule.
Step squad.
Marked by the dragon. I require.
Yeah, I'll turn it up. We're bringing out your best. Ha! A real star takes millions of years to burn out.
My ultimate is I'm really feeling the heat.
Feel the healing beat. Ha! Break up the game.
Step right up.
Oh, let's break it. Turn!
My ultimate is almost ready. My ultimate is ready. I'll find them. Need healing. My blade is ready to be unleashed. You can't hide. My ultimate is ready. Consume you.
Light speed! Catch these healing waves.
Best round 1. Aim is in.
Well played.
Score 1-0.
I appreciate a man with traditional taste in armaments.
Have you ever fired a bow?
No, but you won't catch me with one of those pulse rifles either.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Round 2. Capture the objective.
If we focus, we will succeed.
Ha!
Scanning.
Center of the healing system. They know I'm royalty, right? How's that for sound therapy? That's not right.
She's blind.
Oh, I love helping others succeed.
I'm over the moon. You're safe with me.
Oh, you see this?
Let the dragon consume you!
Oh, you want to hear this? See you in another galaxy.
At least give him a chance.
Steady.
Hello.
Spotted an enemy.
Concussive out.
I am ready to activate the sound
Watch
barrier.
here.
Raise the sonosphere.
Splash.
You
Damage.
can't hide.
Increasing altitude.
There's one.
Ya volví.
That's not right. Oh, let's break it. Damn!
I need healing.
Step Rider.
Victory.
Well played, well played.
Play of the game.
Mind the gap.
Flash wildin'. Where my boy at? What time is it? That's what's up. Cool. These cues are wild.
Welcome to Paris.
Humanity is shackled. I will find the key.
Taken the lead.
Misery made manifest. Pain is inevitable.
Lead lost. Taken the lead.
The process begins again. Big Stangerlat.
taste of poison. Now entering King's Row. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
Stay near, will you? I hate when people run off without me.
One of those flowers. Let me get a flower. Say, Matt, give me a flower.
Join me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack commencing.
turret here.
冻住，不许走。Let the kitsune guide you.
Objective A captured. Escort the payload.
eating and breathing. If we put our minds to it, I'm sure we can build that payload.
I don't give up that easily.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
Not every fight's a fair one.
Life protects life.
Let the kitsune guide you.
60 seconds.
The tree's gone.
Mom would be proud.
Simply following my program.
Little help here.
They're hungry for a fight. Let's give them one.
Restoring balance.
Meet your fate. Don't get caught by that top.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard. The payload is approaching its destination.
Careful, we're outnumbered.
Seconds remaining.
Watch your back.
Lost away.
A little care always helps.
30 seconds remaining.
Step right.
Team kill.
Yes, CD, we need the moral
10
damage.
seconds remaining.
Let the kitsune guide you.
Round 1 complete.
Life protects life.
Score 2-0. Switching sides. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
I'll have us in and out in no time.
Whatever awaits us, I am prepared.
This will not be won without sacrifice. Be ready.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers
Devour
incoming.
them.
Defend objective A.
The path ahead is a hard one.
My strength will be yours. We will shield you for now.
Misery made manifest. Misery.
Was that all?
Stop dying.
We join
Play
me.
the angles.
We will shield you for now. Devour them. Now do you see your error? You are safe with me. Baby's under attack. We put them in the put them in the ground. A mild inconvenience.
Alert! Sniper located.
Didn't account for that weak spot, did you? Devour them.
Life protects life.
Take everything from them.
My screen's gone. Find cover.
I was made to protect, and I shall.
I have been restored.
Up and at it.
I will give you shelter. Put them in the ground.
Let the Kitsune guide you!
You are safe with me.
Personne n'échappe à mon regard.
Beauty. Devour them. You are safe with me. I will speak to you in the language you understand. Violence. Take everything from them. We will shield you for now.
thought you were the sniper.
Devour them!
Protecting.
Life protects life.
I'm overloaded!
Time for spring.
You cannot escape me.
Failure is not defeat.
My automat is ready. Join me.
There they are! I will give you shelter. Take everything from them.
Hear my bell. Let the kitsune guide you.
Put them in the ground.
30 seconds. Don't look now. We're almost there.
Letting out.
Double.
Turret in position.
The scales. 10 seconds.
Find cover and hold. We've almost won. I could use some help here.
Victory. Play of the game. No one can hide from my sight.
Misery made manifest.
That's dope. Hey, Bob. Osmosis Jones. Sagat. about? Boy.
This is new.
Traveling to Mali. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
I'm here to be heard.
I thought my time in the field was done. But I guess you can't predict everything.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack commencing. Capture objective A.
Cannot escape me. I'm under attack.
Yeah, I'll turn it up.
Enemy on me.
wants a piece of this. Time for a remix. Amp up this beat.
Breaking them down.
Get long.
What's one more kill? I appreciate the support.
Basta de caer.
Back off. Turn it up, turn it up. They've got us outnumbered. Damn!
狐の鍵爪を解き放て Огонь по готовности! Огонь по готовности!
Oh man, they messed up the sparkles on my suit.
Traveling to Mali.
Ladies and gentlemen, my latest creation!
30 seconds remaining.
Time is of the essence. Make haste.
I'm under attack. Healing signal incoming.
I'll try to read your face.
10 seconds remaining.
I'm at the objective. Anyone else coming?
Thanks.
Objective A captured. Escort the payload.
Payload's moving, Lucio's grooving. Amp up this beat. Pick it up, pick it up.
Everyone heal up.
Let's wipe them out!
I'm the center of the healing system. Oh, let's break it. Damn!
You cannot escape. Surrender to my will.
I see my way.
Such is the plus of progress. Your end is within my reach.
Clear the way. The payload's rolling.
The fray is upon us.
Big stanger lap.
Turn it up, turn it up. We're a speedy team.
60 seconds. Starting the
Maybe I'll
payload.
try something different this time.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Damn, Dumbo got us outnumbered. Good lord. This is my favorite part.
Back in action!
Ladies and gentlemen, my latest creation!
Anyone else?
Activating self-destruct sequence!
Move the payload!
Look at us go.
No. Kill him.
Moving the payload.
Oh, let's break it. Damn!
Tactical visor activated.
Lasted.
60 seconds remaining.
Crank up the game. Oh, got your back.
The payload is approaching its destination. 10 seconds.
Bring it out your
Okay, let's win. No.
Louder this time. Oh, let's break it. Damn! Persistence is always rewarded. Raise the sonic field.
Oscar Mike.
Round 1. Complete.
Good round. Good job, team. Good job.
Score 3-0. Switching sides. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
We're here to be heard.
More field research? Grand.
A mech as flashy as yours will show up on every radar.
That's just the way I like it.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
My ultimate is charging.
That was just a sound check.
Progress is seldom one with ease. Objective lost. Stop the payload.
know it's not always gonna be a top hit.
Chill. You gotta chill.
They've got us outnumbered. Time for a remix. Kneel to this beat.
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Maybe I'll try something different this time.
Your end is within my reach.
Wave goodbye. Honestly, getting knocked out by Reinhardt.
Let's group up.
Kind of an honor. Let's get into a healing rhythm.
My aim.
Oh, let's break it.
Score 3-3. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
We're here to be heard.
Over here.
All right, let's hear that fighting.
Trap 3-1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
We're here to be heard. This is an uphill fight. Careful.
Defeat. Play of
take a quick smoke break, maybe make some more.
Houston's a very real possibility.
But Zona did not door, which the helper thought was odd because Zona was someone who was always bustling around home and was very quick to open the door and chat with neighbors. And now standing in front of the door, the helper couldn't even sound inside the house. It was like no one was home. And so the helper knocked again, and after some more silence, he just reached down and tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. And so he swung the door in. And right away, the helper noticed that the house was totally dark. None of the lamps were lit, even though the sun was setting fast. And so the helper stepped inside of the house and continued to call out from Mrs. Shu, but answer. And at some point, as the helper turned a corner and looked towards the base of the stairs that led up to the second level, he froze. Because lying on the ground was Zona. She was lying perpendicular to how the stairs run, on her back with one arm over her chest, like she was sleeping at the foot of the stairs. And so
Alright, we gotta back that up.
there are lots of paranormal stories floating around the internet. However, very few are credible. Today, we're going to look at one that is. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, please offer to make the like button a tuna sandwich, but instead of tuna, use a can of cat food. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. In the early evening of January 23rd, 1897, a blacksmith named Erasmus Shu stoked his fire inside of his little shop in rural West Virginia and then called out to his 11-year-old helper who was in the back cleaning up. Erasmus had been planning to head home early that night. However, a last-minute order for horseshoes had just come in, and so Erasmus knew that was not going to happen. He was going to have to work late. And so he was calling for his helper to send the helper to his home, Erasmus's home, to check on Erasmus's wife, Zona. He wanted to make sure that 1, Zona knew he would be late, and 2, if Zona needed anything, the helper could go out and get it for her or help around the house or whatever she needed. After the helper had left, Erasmus went back to poking at his fire, but his mind was not on the horseshoes he needed to make. Instead, it was on his wife, Zona. The couple hadn't told anyone yet, but Zona was pregnant. Erasmus and Zona had only just met a couple of months earlier, but they had fallen in love very quickly. Zona was 23 years old, and she had beautiful dark hair and dark eyes and a quick sense of humor. She was a total free spirit who had grown up on a farm, and she had never really been away from home. When Erasmus had arrived in the little village called Livesey's Mill, which was located near a river at the foot of this mountain and was right near where Zona lived, he and Zona had noticed each other right away. Erasmus, who was quite a bit older than Zona, he was 35 years old, was tall and handsome with piercing blue eyes, and he had come to this little rural town to set up his blacksmith shop. And to Zona, he was like this amazing, new, exciting thing. Zona's family, especially her mother, Mary Jane, did not approve of the fact that Zona and Erasmus had begun seeing each other, mostly because Mary Jane didn't like the fact that Erasmus was so much older than Zona. But Zona was known for being incredibly stubborn, and she loved Erasmus, and so there was just no stopping her. So, in November, just a couple of months after meeting each other, Zona and Erasmus got married and they moved into a little house together, and very quickly, Zona got pregnant. And both she and Erasmus were so excited about this that they wanted to go around and tell people, but early on, it was clear Zona had some complications with this pregnancy. She was sick all the time, and she just seemed really unwell, and the doctor who was seeing her knew that it likely had to do with her pregnancy. And so the couple decided that they should just wait and let the pregnancy develop a bit before announcing the news. So, on this late January day, Erasmus began hustling to finish these horseshoes because he really wanted to get home and be there for Zona and make sure she really was okay. And so as Erasmus thought about Zona, the steel he was heating inside of this fire was glowing bright orange and was ready to be forged into shape. And so Erasmus got his hammer and he got to work. Meanwhile, Erasmus's 11-year-old helper had arrived at Erasmus and Zona's house, and the helper walked through the gate up to the front door of this little 2-story home, and he knocked on the front door. But Zona did not come to the door, which the helper thought was odd, because Zona was someone who was always bustling around the home and was very quick to open the door and chat with neighbors. And now, standing in front of this door, the helper couldn't even hear a sound inside of the house. It was like no one was home. And so the helper knocked again, and after some more silence, he just reached down and tried the doorknob and found it was unlocked, and so he swung the door in. And right away, the helper noticed that the house was totally dark. None of the lamps were lit, even though the sun was setting fast. And so the helper stepped inside of the house and continued to call out for Mrs. Shu, but there was no answer. And at some point, as the helper turned a corner and looked towards the base of the stairs that led up to the second level, he froze. Because lying on the ground was Zona. She was lying perpendicular to how the stairs run, on her back with one arm over her chest, like she was sleeping at the foot of the stairs. And so at this point, the helper is scared. He doesn't know what's going on here. Obviously something is wrong. And so very slowly, the helper began moving closer and closer to Zona. And when he was practically right on top of her, he yelled out her name one more time. And when she didn't call back and her chest wasn't moving and she was just totally still, he knew, obviously, something was terribly wrong. And so the helper at this point turned around and sprinted out of the house and ran back to his own house. And when he got there, he ran inside and he told his mother that he thought Mrs. Shu, Zona, was dead. And so the mother told the helper, run back to the blacksmith shop and tell Erasmus to go home right now. I'll get the doctor.
Electrified. Hanguk Tire.
It would take the local doctor, the same one who had been treating Zona for her pregnancy complications, almost an hour to finally get to Zona's house. And when the doctor arrived, he found the 11-year-old helper and his mother and other neighbors kind of clustered around in the first floor of the home. And then when he went up to the second floor into the master bedroom, he found Erasmus, who by this point had returned, and he was sitting on his bed, and he had laid out his wife, Zona, so that she was on her back and her head was in his arms, and he was stroking her hair and rocking back and forth and crying. The doctor, of course, knew Zona and Erasmus very well because of how often he had been treating Zona for her pregnancy issues over these last few weeks, and so he felt a pit of sadness looking at this scene, but he knew he had to do his job, and so he gently walked over and he put his hand on Erasmus's shoulder, and he just said, you know, I need to examine Zona's body. And Erasmus, at this point, he didn't even look up. He just continued to sob and rock back and forth while stroking her hair. Finally, the doctor kind of was a bit more forceful in asking Erasmus to step aside, at which point Erasmus did. He got out of the way and positioned Zona flat on the bed, and he made sure her hair was perfectly combed all around her neck, and then Erasmus knelt down right next to the bed and continued stroking his wife's hair and crying, while the doctor at this point kind of moved to the foot of the bed and began looking at Zona and beginning his examination. And the doctor would quickly confirm that yes, Zona was dead, and after looking at her pelvis and kind of moving her around, the doctor came to the conclusion that very likely Zona had passed away from pregnancy complications. Zona's funeral would be held the next day at the local cemetery at the top of this hilltop, and by this point, the word had gotten out that Zona had been pregnant when she died. And so during this funeral, everybody was staring at Erasmus, who was overcome with grief and crying so hard that he could barely catch his breath. And then right before they lowered Zona's casket into the ground, Erasmus made a point of putting his wife's favorite scarf into the coffin with her. He said his final goodbyes, he shut the casket, and then it was lowered into the ground. But while the mourners were obviously very moved by just how unbelievably grief-stricken Erasmus was, I mean, his whole family was wiped out in one blow, what really stood out to the people that attended that funeral was not Erasmus's reaction to his wife's death, but rather Zona's mother's reaction to Erasmus. During this funeral, Mary Jane, Zona's mother, didn't seem sad or grief-stricken or in any way reacting to the fact that her daughter had died. Instead, as the funeral went on, Mary Jane shamelessly glared at Erasmus with a look of pure hate and disgust on her face. And then, after the funeral was over, all the mourners wanted to go up to Mary Jane and Erasmus to pay their final respects to the family, but Mary Jane ignored all these people and promptly left the funeral without saying a word to anyone. Lately, me and old Seagull Lung have been eating pretty healthy, and so we decided last Friday to finally have a cheat meal. And so for hours we deliberated over which delicious food we were going to enjoy, and we settled on a piping hot plate of eagle tonsils and a couple of hunks of undercooked cheetah meat. Now, the next morning when we woke up, we expected to feel rejuvenated, refreshed, but instead we felt like we had spent the night before sucking down weird bird tonsils and strange exotic meats. And so as I stumbled out of my bed to go to the bathroom to vomit, Lungy was already in there, and he looks at me and he says, "Papaye, deveríamos ter ficado con HelloFresh," which of course in Portuguese means, "Papa, we should have just stuck with HelloFresh." And of course, the Lung was right, because HelloFresh offers actually good tasting food, and they deliver everything you need to make it right to your doorstep. HelloFresh cares about quality, which is why all of their seasonal ingredients. And they'd see her pacing around her room and then periodically kneeling on the ground and kind of staring off into the distance. And then on the rare occasion that Mary Jane actually left her house, she would look totally disheveled and distracted, and as she walked around town, she'd be mumbling under her breath and constantly looking over her shoulder like she was scared someone was following her. And when concerned neighbors came up to Mary when she was out of her house, she refused to make eye contact with them, didn't want to talk to them, and as fast as she could would get away from them. Whatever was going on with Mary Jane, her husband was not willing to talk about it to other people in town. However, they did notice that he had begun sleeping in the barn, so he was not even staying in the house with his wife. And then, on the morning of February 21st, so about a month after Zona had died, Mary Jane walked out of her house looking totally clean-cut. She was not disheveled, she was not looking over her shoulder, she wasn't muttering to herself, she was standing tall, moving with a purpose, looking totally coherent, and as she moved, the only emotion people could see on her face was anger. And so Mary Jane, angrily, walking with a purpose, walked her way to the local prosecutor's office, and instead of knocking and waiting to be let inside, she just opened the door and barged right inside. The prosecutor knew Mary Jane and knew how strange she had been acting over these last few weeks, and so when she came inside, he was alarmed at her sudden presence, but he was also pretty curious as to what was going on. And so when she came in and demanded to speak to him, he was happy to go into his office and take a meeting kind of simply out of curiosity. But once the two of them sat down in his office, Mary Jane proceeded to tell this prosecutor this totally outlandish story about her dead daughter, Zona, that at first made the prosecutor think, okay, clearly Mary Jane has lost her mind. That's what's been going on over the past few weeks. All this grief of losing her daughter has caused her to kind of snap. But by the end of these 2 hours that Mary Jane seemed to just be kind of rambling about this story about her daughter, the prosecutor started to realize that what she was saying kind of made a lot of sense, and his suspicions began to rise and rise. And so once Mary Jane was done telling this wild story about Zona, the prosecutor was convinced that what Mary Jane was saying had to be true, and so he knew they needed to dig Zona up. And so after Mary Jane had left, the prosecutor ran to the local doctor's house, the same doctor who had been treating Zona and then also looked at her after she died. And the prosecutor would tell the doctor that, hey, we need to exhume Zona and you need to examine her again. And the doctor at first was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But then after hearing what the prosecutor had to say about this crazy story that Mary Jane had just told him, the doctor agreed that, okay, yeah, we do need to do this. And so the next day, February 22nd, a team of men with shovels, along with the prosecutor and the doctor, headed up to the hilltop cemetery where Zona was buried, and they dug her casket up, and then they carried the casket down to the local schoolhouse, and then once she was inside, the workers lifted her body, which was fairly well preserved because the ground was so cold. They lifted her body out and they placed it on a table, and then everybody left except for the
assume Mary Jane is in fact the murderer.
Doctor and the prosecutor. And once the room was clear, the doctor and the prosecutor began examining Zona all over again. And within about 30 seconds of this re-examination of Zona's body, basically at the exact same time, the doctor and the prosecutor, who were on either sides of the body, saw the thing that Mary Jane had alluded to in her wild story about her daughter. And so the doctor and the prosecutor, they're seeing this thing, they look up at each other and they can't believe it. Mary Jane's story had to be true. The following is Mary Jane's wild story. On the day of Zona's funeral, even though Mary Jane was overcome with grief over losing her daughter, the feeling that she really was harboring was hatred towards Erasmus. She hated Erasmus. She had always hated him, but now it was like her daughter is dead and she's forced to watch this guy sob and cry over her daughter's casket, when in her mind she's like, this funeral is about her. It's not about you. And so the whole funeral, she's just staring at Erasmus, channeling all of her energy towards hating him. But then, as she's doing this, a new emotion began to creep up on her that she couldn't quite describe. Basically, it felt like something was terribly wrong. And intuitively, Mary Jane felt like the only person who could explain what this thing was that was wrong kind of in her life somewhere was her daughter, Zona, who was obviously dead. And so this feeling that something is terribly wrong, it completely consumed Mary Jane's mind. And so by the end of the funeral, she wasn't mad at Erasmus. She was just thinking, how do I get in touch with my daughter? I need to get answers from my daughter. And so when the funeral ended, Mary Jane just left the funeral as fast as she could. She went home, she went into her bedroom, and she knelt down and she began to pray. Not for peace or strength in this difficult time, but instead, she prayed for her daughter's ghost to appear to her and tell her what was wrong. And for the next month, that is all Mary Jane did. She was obsessed with this idea that she needed to basically conjure her daughter's ghost to tell her what this thing was that was wrong. And so that was why she was acting totally crazy. All she did was pray and then look for signs that her daughter's ghost had come or was on her way. And so she'd be up all night kind of looking around, hoping her daughter would suddenly appear. And then when she would go outside, the reason she was muttering is because she was still praying under her breath, and she was always looking over her shoulders because she thought her daughter would appear any moment. And then finally, one night in the middle of February, so this is a month into Mary Jane's attempts to conjure her daughter's ghost, she was in her room, she was praying like she normally did with all of her candles lit, and all of a sudden, as she's kneeling down praying, this bright light appears in the middle of her room. And as this light suddenly appeared, the room began to get really cold. And Mary Jane is staring at this light thinking, this is my daughter. But then just as quickly as the light and the cold that came with it had appeared, it disappeared. And so Mary Jane was both really excited because she felt like, okay, the prayers are working. That had to be my daughter's ghost or some sign that my daughter's ghost is going to come here. And so Mary Jane just doubled down on her prayers. She knew she was close to getting her daughter to show up. And so over the next 2 days, that bright light would appear 2 more times, and each time it would just quickly disappear. But again, Mary Jane is thinking, okay, something's happening. My prayers are working. And then finally, on the 4th night, as Mary Jane is in her bedroom praying, the light appears in the middle of her room. It starts to get cold, but then instead of the light disappearing, Mary Jane would describe seeing her daughter kind of step out of this light and suddenly appear in the room. Mary Jane said that her daughter was dressed all in black and her skin was very pale and her eyes were these dark pits and her hair was straight down right over her shoulders, and she was staring at her mother. And Mary Jane, when she saw this, even though she had been trying for a month to get her daughter's ghost to appear, now that it seemed to be happening, she was terrified. And so Mary Jane began backing up right as this ghost begins walking towards Mary Jane. But then Mary Jane, as she's up against the wall, tells herself, you have to be strong. You need to talk to the ghost. You need to figure out what's wrong. And the only question that Mary Jane was able to come up with was, how did you die? And when she asked this question, Zona's ghost came to a stop. And then when Zona opened her mouth, dirt poured out. And then with a raspy, low voice, she began to tell her mother a story. She told her that Erasmus appeared to be this wonderful person to the community, but behind closed doors, he was a monster. He hit her and screamed at her over the littlest things. And then on the night of January 22nd, so one day before Zona would be discovered at the base of the stairs by Erasmus's helper, Zona's ghost would tell Mary Jane that Erasmus had become enraged at Zona over the food she had made that night for dinner. He had wanted meat and she had made something else, and so he was furious. And when Zona tried to tell Erasmus that she would make more food, or there was other food for him to eat, to just please calm down, Erasmus stood up and he grabbed Zona by the neck and he lifted her off the ground. And right at this moment in this story that Zona's ghost is telling Mary Jane, the ghost would stop speaking, and this look of abject terror would come across the ghost's face, as if she was suddenly reliving this moment that happened with Erasmus. And as she's standing there with this horrible look on her face, the ghost began to levitate off the ground, and then it opened its mouth. And as it did, no sound came out, but instead, it was like all the air in the room was getting sucked into this ghost's open mouth. And then all of a sudden, there was this loud cracking sound as the ghost's head suddenly violently whipped around 180 degrees, but the ghost's body was still
Since our last interview, Chris Rock dropped a special. Selective Outrage. You thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great.
You know, if what they all saying is revenge is a dish that's best served cold on Netflix.
He waited a year.
And it's
Let's talk about.
There aren't that many cases where the suspects are smarter than the authorities. But in these 4 cases, the police are completely outclassed. Mark Dinclow was a gang leader accused of kidnapping, torturing, and murdering a former member. But what police didn't know is that Mark was about to completely outsmart them. In July of 2015, Robert Huggins' body was found badly beaten with a fractured skull, lacerations across the chest, and missing nipples. Robert had been kicked from the Gypsy Joker Motorcycle Club just days earlier, so eventually Mark was identified as the lead suspect and brought in for interrogation.
Jeff Sedan almost might. I'm not sure.
We're here to be heard.
Make sure. Dusting off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Defend objective A. Ascending.
Help me. Healing boost. Oh, you want to hear this?
Going up. Decommissioned.
Get out of here.
Get lost. Break up the game.
Thanks. Nice kill. Keep the pressure on.
Going up.
Your end is within my reach. This is my favorite part.
I've been doing this for years. Tactical visor activated.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Dudes.
Turn it up, turn it up!
I've got you in my sights.
That's not right. That tastes just poison. Oh, you want? Oh, let's break it!
Holla.
He didn't die.
Watch your surroundings.
You know, it's not always gonna be a top hit.
10 seconds remaining.
Got this in the bag. Just stay focused.
Objective lost. Stop the payload.
Back off! This music stops for no one. This is an uphill fight. Careful.
They'll regret that.
This bass hits hard.
Behind you, big stanger.
Tactical
Duplicating more.
Yeah, I'll turn it up.
The payload has reached the checkpoint. Surrender my
My power emanates.
Still probably gonna lose this.
Bionic healing ready for use. I've got you in my sights.
60 seconds remaining.
That's not right.
What efficient defense.
Switching tracks.
Score 0-3. Switching sides. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
We will have peace at any cost. state of the world. Something has to change.
Support your local bombardier.
We will not lose this battle if we fight as one.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack.
Put them in the ground.
Capture objective A.
I will give you.
I require assistance.
Thank you. Take everything from them. You are safe with me.
Your assistance is appreciated.
Come on, guys. Damn.
A battle lost for a war
Occupying the objective.
won.
Extra support needed. Objective A captured. Escort the payload. Clear a path is within my reach. Aerial superiority achieved. Scaling up. Pain is inevitable.
We will shield you for now. Devour them. Who needs healing?
The payload moves.
Take everything from them. I will give you shelter. Your miscalculations will cost you everything. Should have kept your distance. Payload secured. Move out. Thank you.
Everybody, I don't care. Let's go.
You cannot escape me.
Put them in the ground.
Duplicating model. Surrender to my will.
We're moving up. Expect resistance.
Functions at peak power.
Take everything from them. Airspace clear.
Made manifest. Your end is within.
Put them in the ground.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Everyone heal up. Take everything from them.
What's that dude doing back there? Just flying around.
I am not beaten yet.
We need to move that payload.
Put them in the ground. Take everything from them. No zero error. Power them. Your miscalculation will cost you everything.
Not so fast.
A mild inconvenience.
Anyone else want to do their job?
Put them in the
Move the payload.
ground.
That's terrible. Tactical visor activated.
Was that all?
Dusting off.
Devour them.
We have suffered a minor setback.
I will give you shelter.
Chase, fucking heal me, healer.
Failure is not defeat.
Gale the Mahal. 60 seconds remaining.
Put them in the ground.
Where's my healer? Where's my freaking healer? Come on.
Clever tactics. Finally.
Surrender to my will. 10 seconds.
We will see your miscalculation will cost you everything.
Tactical visor activated.
The payload is under my protection.
Team kill. Let's go.
Push forward now.
Round 2. Complete. Score 3-3. Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
We will have peace at any cost.
Who's ready to commit some crimes?
Safety's off. It's a cruel world out there.
come you don't stay a big bloke all the time?
I prefer tactical precision over brute force.
Oh, likewise. Some of my favorite bombs are extraordinarily precise.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
A battle lost for a war won. I take everything from them.
That will be all.
30 seconds.
Securing the objective. Mobilizing here.
Wasted enough time.
Hey, touch me up, healer. Heal me.
Objective A, 10 seconds remaining.
Our time is running out. Now do you see your error? Biotic healing ready for you.
Repositioning.
You are safe with me. I will tear victory from your grasp. The payload must be defended.
On the move. Duplicating Moria.
Better. Thank you. Take everything from them. Now do you see your error? You are safe with me. Join me in defending the payload. Put them in the ground. That's one for you, I guess. Thank you.
Let's go.
Touch your
Got him.
your distance. Pulse munitions delivered to target.
The payload has reached
Follow them. Everyone heal up.
What is it now?
Your miscalculation will cost you everything.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh.
5 to 3. Switching sides. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
We can do this. Let's go, squad. We got this.
We will have peace at any cost.
More field research?
ground. Repositioning.
Just another day in the office.
This will not be won without sacrifice. Be ready.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Put them in the
Attackers
ground.
incoming. Defend objective A.
Enhancing your vitals.
My strength will be yours. Everyone heal up. Behind you. Now do you see your error?
Double kill. Taking flight.
Take everything from them. You are safe with me.
60 seconds remaining. Repositioning.
Keep your eyes here.
You cannot escape me.
My resolve
30 seconds
hardens.
remaining. Objective lost. Stop the payload.
Gotta win!
Put them in the ground.
10 seconds remaining.
We will shield you for now.
Stay within my
Take everything from them. Barrier unsuccessful. I will speak to you in a language you understand. Silence.
victory.
Got him.
Play of the game. Adaptive set.
Actually, let me see something.
Well, I mean, what's interesting also is that after the whole entanglement, August Alsina seems like he came out as gay.
Come on now.
Have you seen the picture with him and his like male friend?
Come on now.
And listen, I've been hearing all types of weird stories about Will and Jada over the years. I'm not going to mention them on the air, you know, because I'll probably get sued. But what I'm saying is that like some of the pieces are, I mean, look, I get it. You're married, you have a girlfriend, she has a guy on the side. Things happen.
You guys a question. So you guys all know, you guys are all well aware of the
Greetings, curious acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the Archive. Yoda is the undisputed avatar of the light side of the Force, the Grandmaster of the Jedi Order, and living for nearly 900 years in the Jedi's teachings. During that time, Yoda had plenty of exposure with the dark side, but made it a mission of his own to always remain in the light no matter what.
Me some ballers, huh? Alright, actually, I'm pretty tired, so we're gonna have to end this for now. It's late as fuck here. Peace.
you